Hello everyone and welcome to the class. We are live right now. This is David A. Cox with PCClassesOnline.com, and today we're going to be going over our new to iPhone class, and this is the iOS 7 edition. One of the things I always like to make note of when I do this kind of a class is the date. Today's date is, oh God, what is today's date? It is February 9th of 2014. The reason why I like to put that out there is because, as many of you know, we do put our videos on YouTube, and if this video becomes outdated in the future, which of course it inevitably will, just like to make note of that so you can check out our other videos for possibly a more current version. So today we're going over everything that you would need to know if you have recently purchased an iPhone in order to get up and running. I do a lot of private tutoring with individuals, couples, CEOs, celebrities all over the world, and so I know a lot of the common questions that many people have when they first get their iPhone. So not only are we going to be going over the basics today, but I'm also going to be giving you a bunch of little tips and tricks to keep in mind. Now, for those of you who are attending this live right now, we have an international audience. Please, I do strongly recommend, if you haven't already done so, have a little piece of paper and a pen next to you, because there's going to be a lot of little bits of information that you may not need right now, but you probably will want to hold on to because you might need them down the road. So the first thing I always like to talk about when we discuss the new to iPhone class is starting off with what the various buttons do. Now, a lot of these buttons can actually do multiple things, and what happens is that if you use them in different combinations or if you hold them down for different periods of time, they do different things, and we will cover all of them by the end of this class. However, right now I just want to go over the most important ones, starting with the one right here on the front of the phone at the very bottom. That is called the home button. And if you're in an app, let's say I'm in my settings right now, if I want to go back to the main screen, all I have to do is press and release that button. Very simple. Up here at the top of the phone, we have a sleep switch. Now, when you just click it once, it puts your phone to sleep. You never really shut down your iPhone for the most part, but if you ever do want to, what you do is you press and hold on that button. It takes about 4 seconds, 2, 3, 4, and it says slide to power off. We're not going to do that because we're live. Over here on the side of the phone, you see here we have a total of 3 buttons. One switch, which you can toggle on or off, and that is the vibrate button. It's the silent mode. So if you're going into a theater to see a show, obviously you don't want your phone going off in the middle of the show. So if you look at that toggle switch, when it's on, it actually has a little strip of orange that you'll see, and of course the phone will vibrate and it says silent when you turn that on. I'm going to turn that off for now. Below that, we have our volume up and down buttons. Okay, volume plus, make it louder. Volume down, make it lower. If you hold it, it'll go a lot faster. One of the tricks I always like to throw out there at the very beginning is a very common technique that you may need if, God forbid, one day you're on your phone and it crashes. Okay, and by that I mean, what's happened to me more than anything is I'm usually on Facebook and it just doesn't respond. And I hit the home button, nothing happens. I hit the sleep switch, nothing happens. So I want to teach all of you right off the bat how to do a hard reset. The way you do it is you press and hold the home button and the sleep switch, and you do not let go until you see a white Apple logo appear on your screen. At that point, you can let go and it will reboot itself. So if you run into a problem where it freezes, that's the way you get out of it. Just do a hard reset. Now, what I'd like to do, we're going to go over the different uses of those buttons in a little bit, but for now, I want to go here into settings and just kind of give you a brief run through of these various options and show you what they can do. Airplane mode, I think everyone out there probably knows what airplane mode is. If you're going on a plane, it shuts off the Wi-Fi and cellular connections. Although, at least, I'm not sure if it's international law or if it's just here in the United States. They're going to be starting to do away with that, where you can now, you can use your phone for text messages, but you really can't make phone calls, thank God. Here, next we have Wi-Fi. So if you take your phone and maybe you're at a cafe Instead of using your cellular data, you can very easily log into public Wi-Fi as long as it's available. When you do that, you're going to see the various networks that are available, and they'll probably have this little lock icon. When you see the lock icon, it means that you have to enter in a password. Now, your phone will save that password, so if you come back later on, it'll just automatically join that network. If you do not see a lock, it means one of two things. If you're just in someone's private home, it means it's an open network. You just tap on it and boom, you're online, you're connected, you're good to go. But there's another scenario that a lot of people run into and they get confused about, where they see a network appear, there's no lock icon, they tap on it, and yet it never really connects. They go to check their email and it won't do it, or if it does, it's using the cellular data. That most commonly happens when you're somewhere like an airport, a train station, a subway station, and usually what it means is if you see that open network and you tap in to get to join it, you have to actually launch your web browser app, whether you're using Safari or Chrome, and it'll bring you to a website. It has terms and conditions, and you just have to check off that little I agree button, and then you can browse the web and check your email, etc. Another thing I'm going to be doing over the course of this class is giving you a bunch of little tips for how to save battery life on your device. This is one of them. I don't recommend using Ask to Join networks. It's just going to constantly be searching for Wi-Fi networks that are available. It does eat up a lot of battery life, so I recommend that you not do that. Going back now. To go back anytime a screen, see up here it has like a little caret pointing to the left. Just tap that. Next we have Bluetooth settings. Not everyone uses Bluetooth. In fact, if you don't have any Bluetooth devices, you might as well just turn this feature off. Now in my case, you can see here I have a Bose headset, and this is a device that I'm going to be throwing out there as a little extra, something pretty cool. I have a smartwatch, which has a whole bunch of different features, and it's really not even that expensive, called the Pebble. And so my Pebble uses Bluetooth. I have it on right now. And let's go back and go over some of the other settings. Cellular here, this is really important to know if you start to travel internationally. Okay, I have a lot of clients who I've heard so many different stories over the years, and some of them are just absolute horror stories where they travel, they go, over the pond as we call it, and they don't realize that their phone is checking Facebook in the background, and it's checking for new email messages. And if you don't have an international plan, we're talking big bucks. I have one client of mine who is actually a member of the paparazzi, and he got served with a $2,000 phone bill when he got back from his trip. Luckily, he's since settled with them for a lot less, but it's important to know. Here is where you need to pay attention. You go into cellular settings and you would turn this feature off. Turn off cellular data when you're overseas unless you have an international plan. And I always recommend call your cell phone provider before you do travel. That way you can just be clear on what they charge for and know all the different fees. Some of you may or may not see this next feature here. It's called Personal Hotspot. Unfortunately, there's a lot of employees out there who work for the various cell phone companies who tend to, do I dare say the word scam, their customers into thinking that they still need a 3G or 4G card. It's like a little credit card size piece of, electronics, and it creates a cellular network so that they can get online anywhere. You don't need it. All you have to do is call your cell phone provider and tell them that you want to enable tethering. Tethering and personal hotspot are the same thing. So what you can do is turn this feature on, and on the next screen it'll show you the name of your network. You can create your own password. And let's say I have my laptop and I'm in the middle of nowhere, but I have a cell phone signal. When I turn this feature on, my laptop will see there's a wireless network called David A. Cox's iPhone. And I just type in the password and I'm online. It's an easy way to do it, and it's a lot less expensive than one of those little 4G, 3G cards. Notification Center and Control Center, I'm not going to really go into because most people don't really use the settings for this, but I'm going to go over what are Notification Center and Control Center in a little bit. The next feature, important I think for everyone, is Do Not Disturb mode. Now, Do Not Disturb mode can be used two different ways, and actually, I forgot, I need to use it right now. That way I try to minimize the amount of distractions during today's live class. So what Do Not Disturb mode has is a manual and a scheduled mode. Manual mode would be, for example, if you're, you could do it if you're in a meeting, but most people would just use silent mode. So most people probably won't be using the manual mode much. If you're giving a presentation and using your iPhone, like, I don't know, right now, it's a good idea to use it. Scheduled, though, is nice when you go to bed. So let's say where I am, it's 2 in the morning, and one of you out there likes one of my posts on Facebook, or you send me an email. I don't want my phone buzzing. I don't want it lighting up. I don't want it dinging because like many people, I charge my phone right next to my bed. So by using this feature here, if you try to call me between 11:30 p.m. and 8:59 a.m., it's going straight to voicemail. And as far as text messages and those kind of things, the phone will receive it, but it won't light up, it won't vibrate, and it's not going to make a noise. Now, there is an exception to the rule, and I recommend that you enable these features here, like allow calls from favorites. So what that means is if someone is listed as a favorite contact, and we'll go over how to do that at the end of the class, it means that it will allow that call through. The other feature, and it's really important that you use this, is repeated calls. So let's say, God forbid, your best friend is in a car accident at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, they're going to call you, and let's say they're not in your favorites, your phone is going to not ring. Well, if you're in an accident, you're going to probably try to call back because most people, if they receive a call late at night, they're kind of groggy. They don't necessarily answer the first time. But when the second call comes in, it's usually some sort of an indication that it's an emergency. So with this turned on, if someone tries to call you a second time within 3 minutes, same phone number, it will allow the call through. So that's an important one to use. Next, we're going to go over a couple things here in general settings. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do here to actually help on that battery life. We'll just give you some of the information about your phone, like the serial number. Software update is the iOS updates. So iOS is the name of the operating system for the iPhone as well as the iPad and for the iPod Touch too. And when you see software updates for the iOS, it's usually a good idea to run them, but I always recommend it, if you're a member of our classes, I always try to send out helpful information when there's a big update. For example, when the update for iOS 7 came out, I sent out a warning to all of our users saying, hey, if you're on an iPhone 4S, don't go to iOS 7. It's going to bring your phone to a crawl. And sure enough, a lot of people did and did find that it did slow them down significantly. Next here we have Siri. Okay, now Siri is the automated assistant that's built into the guts of the iPhone, and you can use it to do a ton of different things like schedule appointments, reply to text messages. We'll go over a bunch of those in a little bit. Spotlight search we don't need to go over. Text size, if you have trouble with your eyesight, this will adjust the text for most of what you see on the iPhone. Not everything, but almost everything. A handy thing to help with the battery life, go into accessibility here, scroll down a little bit, and look for this right here called reduce motion. For whatever reason, almost all of the items that will actually bring your battery life back, make it a little bit better, they seem to all be double negatives. I don't know why that is. Well, what reduce motion does is if you are on the main image on your phone and you kind of swivel your phone back and forth, you'll notice that the background kind of moves around. It gives it this 3D type look. But the problem with that is that the technology to make that possible actually uses quite a bit of battery life. So I recommend turning reduce motion on. Again, double negative, but you want to turn it on. Okay? Going back to where we were. We're still here in general. Background app refresh. This is another important one to go into. So this just basically means that these various apps have the ability to refresh their content when you're on Wi-Fi or when you're walking around downtown. And so turning off some of these is going to help your battery life. Certain ones you're going to want though. So for example, in my case, I actually do want Facebook to be able to check, because I keep in touch with friends and I'm a very social person. But something like Clear, which is a great app, it's on my list of favorite ones, but it's a list making app. Why would I care about that being able to refresh in the background? I only need it to refresh when I open it, so I turn that off. So you can go through the various ones that you have here for yours and kind of decide, do I really care if that refreshes in the background? Oops, somehow TV Guide made it by me. I don't care so much about that. Let's go back. Auto lock, Touch ID, these have to do with the security of the phone. Touch ID is only available as of today's date on the iPhone 5S. It has a fingerprint sensor, so you can just put your finger on the home button and it will automatically unlock. You can kind of set those the way you want them to. If you ever sell your iPhone, this is, I guess, worth mentioning. Just go here into Reset, and that's where you can find the option to destroy all data on the iPhone, should you ever need to do that. Going back, sounds, I don't think we really need to go into now. I will let you know that we have a class coming up soon on how you can create your own ringtones. Not just ringtones, but the other sounds that you hear on the iPhone for things like text messages. That's going to be coming up soon. But you can go through this portion here and just determine what sound you want the phone to make when you get an email, when you get a tweet, or whatever. Wallpapers and brightness. Let's go over that real quickly. Another little battery tip. Recommend bring it somewhere around 50 or 40% and turn auto brightness on. The way auto brightness works is it uses the sensor on the front face of the camera, of the phone rather. It'll detect the lighting conditions. If it's dark, for example, you don't really need your phone to be very bright to be able to see everything perfectly, so it'll dim it. Just another little trick. Also, when you go into choose wallpaper, of course, you can use one of your photos or you can go to one of Apple's wallpapers. I don't recommend using dynamic. Same thing, it's going to eat away at the battery life. It has these little bubbles that kind of float around in the background. A lot of the Droid products do the same thing, and it kills the battery life, and it's not necessary. Privacy, that's a big one. A lot of people have concerns about privacy, so let's go over this. First thing we're going to do is go into location services at the very, very top. And this just means that these apps you see here have the ability at any point in time to know where I am. Okay? I don't actually keep a ton of apps on my iPhone. I found that a lot of the best ones out there are free, but with over 1 million apps available, 99% of them I personally couldn't really care less about. So you'll find out a bunch of my favorites at the very end of this class. But if there's items that you see listed here that you don't care about knowing your location, I missed apparently App Store. I don't care if the App Store knows physically where I am, so I'm going to turn that off. Definitely strongly recommend keep camera on. So that way if you have a Mac, if you get a Mac, when you import your photos, you can actually see where you were standing when you took that photo. It's a pretty cool feature. Also, I want you to go to the very bottom of privacy here and notice that at the very bottom there's a thing here for advertising. Another double negative. Limit ad tracking. Sorry, that did it. I did the same thing yesterday. Where were we? Privacy. Advertising. Okay, make sure limit ad tracking is turned on. So that just means, obviously, they can't track you and create relevant ads based on your location. Go back. Also, a couple other things here. If you have questions about iCloud, I have a very strong recommendation for you. The iCloud class is probably the toughest class for me to teach to a large group of people based on the fact that everyone seems to use it differently. Now, we have an entire class on iCloud, and if you go to our website at pcclassesonline.com, look for a class called iCloud Explained, and you can find out about pretty much everything right there, including there's a lot of bad information on the internet about how iCloud works. So I try to clarify all of that and debunk it. So you can check that out at your own time. Mail, contacts, and calendars is where you're going to go to put in your email accounts, whether you're using Gmail or Yahoo or, God forbid, AOL. Bunch of other settings here. One of the things I like to note for security reasons, if you should ever have a stalker or someone who you really would rather not hear from. If you go here into either phone or messages, and there's actually a third place you can go to, which we'll cover in a bit, there is a feature where you can block their information so they won't be able to contact you. Another security feature I want you to check out is in Safari. Go here into the Safari settings, scroll down a little bit, and look right here. By default, this is turned off. Remember, you're looking at my phone, so all the settings for the most part are right. You want to make sure that Do Not Track is turned on, another double negative. And if you have watched our other videos, you can probably figure out one of the apps I'm going to recommend, which is to not ever use Safari because it's a pretty terrible web browser. Instead, I always recommend clients check out Google Chrome. It's a lot more reliable. Scrolling down here, you can go into the iTunes and App Store settings. And this is where you can tell your phone, basically, if you download music on your phone, do you want it to automatically go onto your iPad and your Mac? Well, those other devices have these same settings, and as long as they're in sync, you're good to go. One of the things I have happen a lot, and this is going to sound a little bit off topic, but I think it's important. A lot of times when I'm doing a private session with clients, a lot of times I end up working with couples. And let's say it's a husband and wife. A lot of times the husband and wife will actually share one Apple ID, but the wife inevitably says, I don't want his music, and the husband usually says the same thing. So what you can do is you can share an Apple ID with your spouse. Just what you do is you tell it to not automatically download apps or music. So you can have your own little world, they have their own little world. And hey, if you find an app that you both like, you only have to pay for it once because you're sharing that one ID. Another feature I want you to check out here is auto update. In the past, you've had to update apps periodically, and by periodically, I mean it seems like almost every day. With this, it'll automatically do it. The only thing you need to know is it won't update it if you're in the app, so you just quit out of it. Okay. Let's see. The only other things I want to go over here in settings, I want to alert you to. I'm not going to go into it right this, I can go into it, never mind, is in Facebook. A lot of people out there, of course, use Facebook, 1.23 billion users, I believe, currently. Watch out in the settings for Facebook for these top two, calendars and contacts. The reason why is if you're like me, you probably get invited to a billion different events that you have no interest in ever going to. It's from people who e-blast it to everyone that they're friends with, even if they're thousands of miles away. So by turning this feature off, it will not take those events and import them into your real calendar. Contacts. Facebook did this really nasty trick. I'm trying to remember how long ago it was. I want to say it was at least 6 months ago, where if you have your email address listed in Facebook, people used to be able to see your email address. But then what they did is they changed it. So it was the beginning of your email address up to the @ symbol, and then it was @facebook.com. And the problem is that if you have this feature checked, it will override your contacts. So all of your friends' email addresses become @facebook.com. Really, really annoying. So I do strongly recommend turning those two features off. That's it for settings. Next, we're going to talk about two features, one of which is new in iOS 7, the other one, which has been around for a while, called Control Center and Notification Center. We're going to start off with Control Center. So sometimes when you're on your phone, and you can even do this while the screen is still locked, sometimes you just want to get to certain types of settings, like to make it brighter or to go to the next track if you're playing music, if you want to turn on Bluetooth, that kind of thing. The easy way you can do it now, and you're going to have to watch my pointer here, is you want to take your finger from the very, very bottom of the phone. Okay, you can even start a little bit off the screen and then slide up. And when you do that, you'll get these settings here. This is called Control Center. Again, just those simple tools that we need access to pretty commonly. At the very top left, we have airplane mode, Wi-Fi. If you're not familiar with this symbol, memorize it, especially if you're going to be traveling internationally where you may not speak the language. That is the universal symbol for Wi-Fi. Bluetooth, The moon icon is do not disturb mode, which, as you can see here, I have turned on, but most of you won't. This is a lock orientation button. Not very many people use that on the iPhone. A lot of people use it on the iPad, but it just means that if I tilt my phone, if I put it into landscape mode, it won't adjust it. It'll stay the same. Brightness settings, you got a little sun here, a big sun right here. So you take your finger on the dot and slide it to the right or left if you want to make it brighter or dimmer. Below that, we have the international symbols for the different things you do in music. So play, next track, previous track, volume adjustment, same thing as using the buttons on the side. And then down here at the left, we have AirDrop. And a lot of people don't know what AirDrop is. AirDrop is similar, it's sort of like a text message, but it's a little bit different. Let's say I am having a party at my house and I take a group photo of everyone. And let's say all of my friends have iPhones and I want to send that photo to all of them. Well, what AirDrop does is it looks for people either who are physically near you, who are in your contacts, or anyone, and it allows you to take something like a photo and send it to all of them instantly. It's a really cool feature, especially for parties, but it's pretty cool. Next here, this where you currently see it says David's MacBook Air. We use a feature called AirPlay to be able to teach these classes. But let's say I had photos on my phone and I have a little device called Apple TV. It's a little black box, plugs into your television, but essentially it gives you access to mirror anything from your phone onto your television. So if I tap on this button here, I could connect my iPhone to Apple TV and take the photos that are on my phone and sling them onto the TV. It's a pretty cool feature. Then down here at the bottom, we have quick, easy access to 4 very commonly used apps. We have a flashlight that actually uses the flash you'd use on your camera, but it just leaves it on instead of just flashing it quickly. Next here, we have the clock options. So whether you want to set a timer or an alarm, it's going to take you into that app. Next here, we have a calculator, quick and easy. And this is one way to get into the camera. So if you want to take photos, that is one way to get there. There's an easier way, which I'll show you in just a little bit. Now, next, I'm going to show you a little bit about the notification center. It's very similar the way you access it, but it's from the top of the phone. So you're going to take your finger at the very, very top and drag it down. One of the things I always do when doing these classes, give me 1 second here, is I like to do this initially off screen just so I can make sure there's nothing about my client's data. Nope, there isn't. Good. Okay. So when you swipe down, this is what I see. So it starts off with your forecast. You can see here we're getting snow, and I've got my schedule clear for the rest of the day. Woohoo. It'll give you stock information, show you what you have going on tomorrow. Now at the top, you see here right now we're on today. If you go over here to all, it's just kind of everything from calendar items, my security system I have right here. If you go under missed, it's just items that you didn't see on your phone and that you never opened up. In my case, it's usually items that I don't care about. So things like CNN alerts. That's actually all I have right there. Okay, so that is Notification Center. Next thing I would like to do is we're going to go over a whole bunch of different tricks having to do with the camera. One of the big tips I like to give people, now I just shut my phone, I hit the sleep switch. I like to show people how to really quickly get into the camera. You do not need to even unlock your phone to get there. If you look at the bottom right corner of my phone, there's this little camera icon. Now some people think that you tap on it. You don't. You have to slide your finger from bottom to top and it goes into the camera. Hey, that's my laptop. So now while you're looking at my keys, I'm going to give you a few other tricks. The first thing I always try to recommend to people that they do, whenever you're taking photos, do not take them in this mode. Hold your phone horizontally. It just always looks better if you shoot video. A lot of times you'll be watching the news and they'll have footage from someone who took it from their phone and they always shoot it vertically and it looks terrible. Always shoot horizontally if you can. You can always crop later on. So try to do that. Now, the next trick I want to give you, this is, my finger's going to enter the shot right now. A lot of times when I see people walking down the street, I live in a tourist community here at the very tip of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I see people taking photos all the time, and this is the number one tip that I usually give them, is most people, when they take a photo, they use this button. This is the on-screen shutter button. Think about what you're doing. You're moving your phone, and when you move the camera, you're going to lose focus, even if it's just by a little bit. So the problem with that is you're bumping the shot, okay? It's not going to be a lot, but it's going to still probably distort it a little bit where it's not going to look quite as crisp as it could. Here's the big tip. Now, the actual image that you see on this phone is mine. Obviously, the border is simulated. But on the side of your phone, you have that volume plus button. The volume plus button is a shutter when you're in the camera app. This actually started as a hack, and Apple heard about it, and they said, you know what? That's actually a pretty good idea. So a lot of times there's actually an interesting relationship between the hacker community and Apple, where if they have a really good suggestion, they'll take it to heart and they'll build it into the guts of the operating system. So if you want a stable shot, use this button over here on the side. Now also here you're going to see we have the flash options. A lot of times, many times my photos actually look better without a flash. That being said, if you have an iPhone 5S, they actually don't look that bad because it has two different flashes. One is a warm color temperature and the other one is a cool color temperature. So it balances so that when you take the photo, the person doesn't look washed out. HDR. HDR is a feature, a lot of people don't know what it is. It stands for High Dynamic Range, and the perfect example where you would use an HDR setting would be a sunset or a sunrise, where you have parts of your photo that are going to be very dark and parts that are going to be very light. So what it's doing is it's actually taking two photos. One is going to be balanced for the light portion, one's going to be balanced for the darker portion, and it just blends them into one photo. This button up here will reverse the cameras. So if it's currently on the back-facing camera, it'll switch to the front-facing camera. Down here at the bottom, you'll see that we're currently on photo mode. If you ever want to go to these other modes, just swipe with your finger here in the middle of the screen, left or right. So when I swipe from left to right, it goes into video mode. So now I'm going to be recording footage. If you go over again, this is slow-mo mode. So it's shooting at 120 frames per second. Especially great for things like sports footage, maybe snowboarding, skiing, etc. If we go over here to square mode, sort of simulates what you'd find in Instagram, but it just makes it a perfect square. If you've never tried it before, the panoramic feature is awesome. And what it will do is you'd start off with your phone with your body preferably rotated to the left. You would hit the shutter button. You do actually have to use the on-screen one for this, but it's okay because it's constantly capturing. And you rotate either your phone or your body, and when you're done, just tap it again and it will stitch it into one photo. Great if you're at somewhere especially wide. Let's say you're at the Grand Canyon. You're not going to get a good photo of the Grand Canyon in one shot, but when you use a photo stitch, it just looks awesome. One other feature I want to show you real quick here is down here at the very bottom right when we're in photo mode. See these three little circles? That's your built-in filters, okay? So it's going to be kind of hard to see here. I'll show you my hand so you can see, but it adds a different tone, different look to it. So up here at the top, we have mono. It's just going to go black and white. Noir, it's going to have a lot of contrast. Chrome, I find, is great if you're photographing nature. A lot of times it'll just make all those little colors pop. Gives you a little bit of extra saturation. Okay, that's about it for the camera. Next thing we're going to go over is moving apps, creating folders, and how to delete apps, because they're all very, very similar. So the way that you can start this process, no matter what you're actually doing, is you're going to press and hold on any app. Let's say I want to do something with my Contacts app. I can press and hold on it, And you see how they all start to jiggle? Well, let's start off with how to delete. Some of these apps that you see now have an X at the top left. That means that those are apps I can delete. You cannot delete any apps that came with the phone. You can bury them in a folder, like I do, some of them, but you cannot actually delete them. If you see one that is a third-party app, you just tap on the X. It'll ask you, are you sure you want to delete? And when you click delete, it's gone. If you want to move apps, all you have to do is, now that we pressed on the app and held down, I can now move with my finger wherever I want contacts to go. If I want to move it to page 2, all you have to do is kind of edge it towards the side, and it will switch over to page 2. And same thing if I want to go over here to the left. I just kind of let it hang out there for a second, and it comes back. When you want to create a folder of apps, let me take camera and bring it into create a folder with photos. All you have to do is take one app and drag it and drop it into the other. Now, if they are of a similar topic, it's going to try to figure out the name of the folder for you. If you're not happy with its decision, maybe I want it to be just photo. See this little X? All I do is tap on that. It brings up the keyboard, and I can type in my own title. Okay? When you're done with any of these changes and you want to lock it in, all you have to do is just press and release the home button. That'll stop them all from jiggling. Next thing I want to talk about very briefly, because we have an entire video on it that's already been produced, is on Siri commands. Siri is the automated assistant, and the way you access Siri is by pressing and holding this key, holding down the home button. And so when you do, you're going to hear a little beep noise, and at that point you can talk to Siri. By the way, in settings earlier, you can actually make Siri a male or a female. Mine is still on the default, which is female. And you can do a whole bunch of different things. If you want to learn about all the different commands that you can tell Siri, check out a video that we produced a couple months ago, and it's called Siri Commands iOS 7 Edition, or it's something like that. But it's on our website. It's on pcclassesonline.com. One example I'll just give you is you can press and hold and say, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow?
It's not looking good tomorrow. Down to 21 degrees Fahrenheit and snowing.
That's just one of many, many examples. And I'm going to give you actually a little trick about Siri coming up in a few minutes. Next thing I want to do is go over deleting emails, deleting text messages, and I'm going to give you one of the most unknown tricks about the iPhone that I found, at least. A lot of times when I'm working with a client, occasionally I'll get this question, and sometimes it's through email, sometimes it's when I'm with them in person, where they'll say, I'm just out of all space on my iPhone. Now, when you plug your phone into your computer and you see it in iTunes, there's a little bar that you see at the bottom, and it shows you how much data you have. And one of the items that seems to confuse a lot of people is there's this giant yellow portion called Other data. And people are like, well, what does that refer to? It's a large list of items, but there is one portion in Other data that takes up more space than anything. A lot of times, when people receive text messages, they never ever delete them. They just respond to them, and then they go on with what they're doing. The problem is that if you have friends who send you photos or video files, or if you just have a lot of text messages, you would be shocked by how much space that actually takes up. So what I recommend doing is go into the Messages app periodically and just clear everything out. The easy way to delete, there's two different ways. What I'm going to show you now also does apply to email, is you can take your finger and slide from right to left, and you'll see the delete key, or you can tap on the edit button, and you'll see that little red minus symbol pop up. You just tap it, and then tap delete. So you can go through and do a whole bunch of them. Same is true for emails, but the emails don't take up a lot of space on your phone. So I do strongly recommend going through every few months and just wipe out all of the old text messages that you feel comfortable getting rid of. let's see. Let's go into email here for a moment. Okay, you are seeing right now my dummy account that I use only for teaching purposes, so I'm sure the email address will pop up at some point. Don't bother emailing it. I don't ever check it. It's just for demo purposes. So let's go into this generic email from Apple. Now at the bottom, you'll see here a whole bunch of different buttons. This one right here with the pen icon is Compose. The one next to it is a combination of a couple things. It's Reply, Forward, and Print. Now you can print from your iPhone onto your home printer even if it's not an AirPrint printer. That's the name of the technology that you supposedly need to be able to print. If you don't have an AirPrint printer, check out one of our videos that we did not even all that long ago. It's the updated version of how to turn how to print to a non-AirPrint printer. You can check that out. Now, depending on what email service you use, this next icon could look like a box, a filing cabinet rather, or a trash can. That's all based on who you actually use. The next one here is File. So if you have folders for email, maybe let's pretend this is a receipt. I want to put it in my folder called Receipts. I could do it right there. And finally, over here we have Flag. People use flags for different reasons, but it'll just put a little red flag next to it. Now, when you're composing an email, okay, of course you can type in the person's email address, you can type in the subject, but another trick I want to make sure you're aware of is that you don't even really need to type, because if you look down here at the bottom of the keyboard, you'll see that you have this little microphone icon, and that just means that I can dictate everything to email. So I can say, "Hey Mom and Dad, it was really great seeing you this weekend. Can't wait to see you next month, period." There you go. And it just dictated all of my words into text, and I would hit send. You can dictate punctuation. A lot of people aren't very good at doing that, so you could always just go back later on and put it in down the road. Also, one thing actually hadn't been on my list, but I do want to cover this. I want to talk briefly about copying and pasting data. So let's say I want to copy this sentence, okay? The way you do it is you're going to press and hold with your finger, and you can see that as I move it, it's showing me where the cursor is going. So for example, if I misspelled something, I could put it right here and hit the backspace key. But I can really just put it anywhere. Hit select. And when you do select and it's on a word, it puts these two little dots with lines on either side. And now what I can do is I can take each one, I'm going to try to do this, and I can drag it to the whole area that I want to copy. So now what I can do is I could hit copy. You can see the option just showed up right there. Delete it. And if I wanted to paste it, all I do is I press and hold with my finger, and I get the option for paste. And that's how you copy and paste text. For those of you who are here live, if you missed anything there, don't worry, we can go over it again at the very end. Or, of course, today's class is being recorded, so you can always go back later on and check that part out. Next thing we're going to talk about briefly is getting apps. I have my app store over here. Now, to get apps on your iPhone, you need something called an Apple ID. It's just an email address and a password that you use anytime you're purchasing things like music, movies, TV shows, or apps in this case. Let's go to top charts. Now, you can go into top charts here at the very bottom and check out the most popular games, or you can stick around a little bit, and I'm going to give you my list of some of my favorite items. Very, very few games. I don't think I even have any games. That being said, ironically, because it's on the screen, this is one of the most fun games, especially if you have an iPad. It doesn't work that great on the iPhone, but it's called Heads Up. We're big fans of Ellen DeGeneres, and this is her company's app. It is so much fun with a large group. It'll have your whole family going. So I hope you'll check that one out. But when you want an app, all you have to do is tap on the price right here, and it'll be auto-charged to whichever credit card you use to register your Apple ID. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can buy an Apple gift card and use that instead. But like I said, of all the apps that I'm going to recommend to you today, the total price as of today's date, for all of these is, I think, around $3. So you probably don't need a gift card for that. Next, we're going to be talking about multitasking. So as I've been going into all of these apps that you've seen, it looks like they're closed, when in fact they are not. All of those apps are actually still running in the background. It's just that the phone isn't using a lot of resources to manage them. Now, in older versions of the operating system, this was the biggest battery killer of them all. It's not so much of an issue anymore. I still clear these out every once in a while just to make my phone speed up a little bit, but I want to show you how to use multitasking and how to end it. So the way you use multitasking, let's say, for example, I'm in my email as I just was, and let's say I'm copying and pasting data constantly from, let's just pretend it's copying from settings. I don't want to reveal any of my friends' phone numbers over the course of this class if possible. So instead of having to hit the home button to go back to the main screen and then go back into email, instead I can double click the home button. 1, 2. When you do that, it sort of pulls back, and I can now use my finger to swipe between all the different apps here that I've been in during this class. And if I want to go back to email, I just tap on email, and it comes right back to where I left off. Now, as you start to get a lot of apps all running in the background, this can slow you down a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. So I want to show you how to end multitasking. This is also especially helpful, and I found that the app that seems to be the most guilty of this is Facebook. Sometimes you're on the Facebook app and it crashes. So what do? You hit the home button, and then you go back. But you never really quit out of it, so the same problem is still there. So you need to know that when you do this, when you end multitasking, it's the same thing as quitting out of a program on your computer. All you have to do is, once again, double click the home button so it pulls back, and you're going to take your finger somewhere in the middle of this representation of the app and drag it up, swipe up rather, and you'll see it kind of swooshes away. You can even do this 2 at a time if you want. Oops, I can't, of course. There we go. And so that is completely quitting out of the app, and if you have a problem with one of them, especially Facebook, that's a really easy way to resolve it. Next, I am going to give you my really fast list of all the different apps that I recommend for clients. A lot of these I'm just going to mention by name. You can write them down, check them out on your own time. A couple of them I may go into just to show you briefly. So here we go, in no particular order. And presume that these are free unless I say otherwise. Chrome. Best damn web browser out there. If you have it on your computer and on your iPhone, all of your bookmarks will sync as well as your passwords. It's really easy, and it's a way around the annoying iCloud keychain. CNN or another news app I do recommend having because, at least for myself, I like to be alerted of breaking news stories, and just by having the CNN app, when you first open some of these apps, it's going to ask you, do you want push notifications? So that means that I could be in the middle of doing something else, and it's going to be looking for updates for that app, and if there's a breaking news story, it's going to put it on the top of my phone, so I'll see it. A lot of times, most apps, when they say, do you want push notifications, I usually say no. With things like CNN and Facebook and email, I do, because obviously you want those kind of notifications. Zeit here. For those of you who maybe are familiar with another app called Pandora. Pandora is a music app where you tell it what music you like, and it will create a radio station based on that taste. Well, Zeit is similar to that, but what you do is you tell it what topics interest you, and it creates a news magazine for you based on those interests. Now, Zeit is by far better on the iPad, but you know what? It's not bad on the iPhone, especially if you're stuck in a train station or waiting for a plane, so I wanted to at least throw that out there. Next one is WeatherBug, which you see right here. WeatherBug, probably, in my opinion, the best weather app out there, and also the most accurate. The other thing I like about WeatherBug is they give you access to live radar down here at the very bottom. So be sure to check that one out. A lot of you out there, especially if you're in the United States, I don't know if these commercials are going on internationally, you may have heard of a service out there called freecreditreport.com, which if you do your research, you know it's anything but free. However, Credit Karma is. So it's a free way to get access to your credit score. It does not take long to set up at all. There really are no hidden fees of any kind, and you can do it from your phone, your iPad, or any computer by going to their website. That's another good one, and it's free. If you're shopping, Red Laser can come in handy. It will use the camera and you'll scan the barcode of whatever item you're buying. It really only works on mostly electronic items, some grocery items, but nothing really obscure. And it will look online for where you can possibly get it cheaper. It'll also look locally, see if you can get it for less money elsewhere. That, of course, is also free. Check Please. If you are mathematically challenged like me, all season D's in math in high school. Check Please Lite. It's really simple. It's free. You tell it what the total bill was. So say the bill was $89. There were 4 people. The tip is going to be 20%. So it tells you down here that the total tip is $4.14, $26 a person. Okay? Really, really easy for the mathematically challenged. Next one here, let's see, is if you hate calling those damn 1-800 numbers, there's this awesome little app called Get Human. It's free, and the way it works is you just type in at the very top the name of the company you're trying to call. For example, if you've ever tried to find the phone number for Amazon, it's impossible. Facebook, same thing. All you do is you type in the name of the business, boom, tap on their number. You can either get immediately, here's their 1-800 number, and in some cases, not all, you can use this feature here called Call Me Back. So what they do is they're actually placing the call for you, and then when the representative picks up, your phone rings, and when you pick up, you've got them on the phone. It's not great with everyone, especially if you're dealing with a company that has a really, really awful, tragically bad customer service rating, Comcast. But for other companies that are good, like Amazon, it's very helpful. That's another free one. Next one, handy if you like going out to restaurants, is Yelp. Yelp is a social network. I have a lot of issues with these guys as a company. I think that they have a lot of really sleazy practices, and they strike me as a very arrogant company in terms of, well, we don't need to go into that. But what is great about Yelp is if you're going to a restaurant and you want to find out what's the best damn thing on the menu, what does everyone rave about here, you can go into the info for that restaurant, go through the different reviews, check out photos, and it'll look for keywords that show up a lot, so you can kind of figure out what is good on the menu. Next one. Oh, this one is kind of a, well, it's not that it's sleazy, but it's anyway, it's called Friend Check. I believe this one is $1, but I'm not 100% positive on that one. What Friend Check does is it analyzes your Facebook friends, and if anyone ever unfriends you on Facebook, it gives you an alert. Just make sure you go into the settings and check them out. It does have a feature where it can automatically basically send a message to your friend saying, "Hey, why'd you unfriend me, jerk?" So just maybe don't use that. Just have it for your own knowledge. Next one I want to recommend is Google Maps. It's not really a big secret, but the Apple Maps program is atrocious. If you try to find out where to go, how to get from Cape Cod to Boston, you'll end up in LA because it's just that inaccurate. And so what I recommend doing is getting Google Maps. I don't love the program Google Maps because there's a lot of features that they just don't make things obvious, and they change things around constantly, but it does seem to be more accurate overall. I want to give you a very big tip right now. If you have Google Maps on your phone, a lot of people think, well, if I ask Siri how to get directions, it's always going to use the damn Apple Maps program. Well, there is a way that you can trick it so that it uses Google Maps. Here's the trick. Watch the way I phrase what I tell Siri. Give me directions to Boston via transit. By simply adding the words via transit, it means give me options other than just a car. And Maps doesn't have that. So you go in and it says, here's Google Maps. Click on route. There is one extra step that you do need to do. See, it thinks by default that you're taking a bus. So instead, just switch it over to car and hit start navigation. And that's it. Very, very easy. The next one is a item. It's the app portion. This talks to a device that we have in the PC Classes Online store. It's called the Pebble. It's a smartwatch. You can get everything from weather alerts, text message notifications, caller ID, all on your wrist. It's a really cool device, and it's fairly inexpensive. So check that out if you're interested in that kind of thing. Next one is we've actually done a class on before, and it's called Clear. It's a very simple note-taking app, or rather, I'm sorry, not note-taking, list-making app. But it's very simple. It syncs with iCloud, and it's available for the iPhone, the iPad, and the Mac. That one is 99 cents on the iPhone. It's, I believe, $5.99 on the iPad and $9.99 on the Mac. It sounds obvious, but not everyone knows that they need it. YouTube. In order to watch YouTube videos, you pretty much need the YouTube app. It's the easiest way to do it. Of course, the iPhone does not run Flash. In case you're not familiar with Flash, you know the car, the Hummer? I always have to say that because if I said it's, well, Flash is like the Hummer of technology. I have to say that little intro because I don't want you to think that Flash is like the, you get it. Anyways, so Flash, it will just kill your battery. That's why a lot of the Android phones that you see out there, they have atrocious battery life. I actually just got in an Android tablet, brand new, for teaching purposes. And the thing heats up and the battery just plummets when you start using Flash. So by using the YouTube app, it's using a different technology to process video. It's called HTML5, but it just runs a lot easier. Next one, for those of you who like taking photos, you might want to check out Instagram. It makes your photos look old. This one is probably my #1 recommendation. One of the apps that you'll notice you have not seen on my phone because it's buried here in my folder called Rarely Used is the calendar. I personally hate the calendar that's part of iOS 7. It's terrible. The old one was great. It was easy to use. It was simple. But they changed it completely around for iOS 7, and it's awful. There is another app that you can use. It will extract all of the data from the calendar app, and you can even use Siri with it. But it's free, and it gives you back all of the features that those of us who missed the old version, it'll give you all those features back. It's called Cal. Excuse me. It's called Cal. It's free. And when you go to look for it in the App Store, just type in CAL. The full name is Cal, a Google Calendar by any.do. Just look at this icon right here because it's going to pop up when you search for it. But it's a great, great little calendar app. And don't worry, I do see all of your questions that are coming in now. I will answer all of them at the very end. Facebook app, for those of you who use it, who use Facebook, it's a handy, of course, thing to have. Shazam is a music app. If you're listening to music, let's say in the car, you can launch Shazam. It'll listen to the music and figure out what song it is for you. It's worth pointing out, but if you go into the music app, there's now a feature called iTunes Radio. And iTunes Radio is very similar to Pandora. I have found that iTunes Radio is actually a lot better. Partially, I was reading an article recently in, I think it was Consumer Reports, and the number of songs that iTunes Radio has access to versus Pandora, it's a dramatic difference. So as far as if you're looking for free music to just play from your phone, you can create your own radio station based on the artist that you like. So you can see some of the ones I have here, you know, Bruno Mars, Daniel Powter, The Voice, Maroon 5, Lady Gaga, etc. But it's free. You can just put it on, go to the gym, and listen to your music. The only part you do need to know about that is it does use your data if you're not connected to Wi-Fi. Next app is WebMD. Okay, it's just a handy app to have if you have a bruise, a funny feeling, a rash, and you just want to kind of put in the symptoms and see what it might be. It's not meant to diagnose, but WebMD is a good app to have, and it's free. If you wear glasses like me, I'm actually wearing my contacts right now, glasses.com is an interesting app. It takes multiple photos of you and combines them into a 3D image. So you can virtually try on hundreds, if not thousands, of different pairs of glasses. So you can see here, I can move and see how all these different types of glasses look on me from different angles. And I look so much better with contacts. So that's that. That's another free one. Next one, if you have a small business, one of the things that can really incredibly dramatically help your business is to put out video content onto social media like Facebook and YouTube, etc. There's a fantastic app here called Director. We're going to be doing a video on this eventually. It's DIRECTR, and there's a business edition and just kind of a normal edition. I really am only going to recommend the business one. But what it does is it walks you through these different video templates, and using the camera on your iPhone, you can create a movie for your business. And they have like product videos, testimonials, executive profile videos, recruitment videos, and it shows you, do this kind of a shot. Okay, now do this kind of a shot. Adds in the music, produces it. It's an awesome little app. Very strongly recommend you check that out if you own a small business. We only have two more left. The next one is called Van Monet. Van Monet is just a fun photo app. It takes your photos and makes it look either like a Monet or a Van Gogh. So if we try it right now, let's see. I didn't have great success with this yesterday, but let's take one of a flower. Granted, it's sideways, but you kind of get the idea. It's a cute little app. I think that one is also $1. Finally, if you're looking for a way to accept credit cards on your phone, especially if you're someone like myself, you have a mobile business, Square is the name of the company. The name of the app is called Register. But it's an easy way to accept credit cards. They direct deposit everything into your checking account. I've been using them now for about, I think, 3 years. And I've tried other competitors, and they're by far the easiest to use. So that's a little shout out for them. A couple other quick tricks before we go, and then I'm going to get to all of your questions for those of you who are here live. A creative little trick for remembering what groceries to pick up at the grocery store. One of the things that Siri has access to is location information. So if you go into your address book and you add a contact called grocery store, and you can even put multiple locations. You can put multiple grocery stores in. Although you'd probably only put one. It would be a lot easier. What you can then do is say to Siri, next time I'm at the grocery store, remind me to get item A. And so then when you go to the grocery store, the Reminders app will kick in, and you'll get this giant list of everything that you told Siri that you wanted to remember to pick up. Just another little trick. When you're in iMessages, okay, I've just deleted all of them, but I can still walk you through this part. Some of you may have noticed that when you send a text message, sometimes the text is green and sometimes it's blue. And a lot of people don't know the difference. Blue means it's free. It means the person that you're communicating with is on an iPhone, or I believe, don't quote me on this one, but I believe they also could be on the same network, same carrier. So if I have Verizon, the other person's also on Verizon. If it's green, it means it's being sent as a text message. So it's if you have a certain number of texts that you're allotted every month, it's going to come out of that total. And that actually about does it for today. We've gone over a lot of different items here having to do with the iPhone. We have a great crowd here. We have a lot of questions that people have submitted. I need to get a little sip of water before I get to all of them. For those of you who have been watching this video on our website or on YouTube, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you are watching on YouTube, one little thing that you can do, which we really appreciate, we actually get paid to do these videos by Google, and we get a little bonus if you hit the little like button below. So if you learned anything, of course we appreciate it. We get even more if you click share and send it out to your friends on Facebook, Google+, Twitter, etc. So this is David A. Cox. I hope to see you all soon. For those of you who are here live, stand by and we'll get to you in just a moment.